Well, Nintendo is no stranger to weird games. From cardboard pianos to motion-controlled fitness rings, the company's built its legacy not only on great games but on strange ideas that somehow they make work. And now, as the Switch 2 era begins, they're doing it again, this time with a brand new first-party title called Dragon Drive. It's one of the first games to fully embrace the Switch 2's new Joy-Con features, including mouse controls, hand tracking, and a control system unlike anything that Nintendo has done before. Well, today Nintendo releases Dragon Drive, and the previews, they are quite mixed. Some are impressed by the ambition and others are baffled by the controls, and many people are asking, who is this game for? Well, today we're going to be digging into Dragon Drive. We're going to break down what it is, how it plays, the gimmicks it leans on, how fans have reacted, and all of this to answer one big question: will Dragon Drive be a success, or is it just going to crash and burn on the court? Well, if you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button down below for even more Nintendo content here on Power Up Direct. Okay, first of all, let's start out and have a look at what Dragon Drive actually is. So this is Nintendo's newest first-party IP and one of the most intriguing and quite confusing titles launching alongside the Switch 2. So at its core, it's a sci-fi wheelchair basketball game. It doesn't really follow the typical blueprint. Instead of steering with a joystick or triggers, players use the mouse controls, effectively dragging their vehicle around the track with precision swipes, flicks and gestures. Well, it's wheelchair basketball reimagined for the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's set in a neon-drenched post-cyberpunk universe and play wheelchair basketballs. But one of the most surprising design choices is there's no local multiplayer. It's a rarity for a Nintendo sports game. Everything is built around solo play and online competition, although having said that, the game is rather reasonable. So here in the UK it's $16.99, I would imagine that translates to about $20 in North America. So in many ways, Dragon Drive feels like Nintendo's attempts to combine the kinetic chaos of Splatoon and the tech found in 1-2 Switch. But it's wrapped in a competitive wheelchair basketball format and has a flavour of online competitive gaming. So it's bold, it's decisive, and it's exactly the kind of thing that sparks heated debates and maybe in the future even a cult following. Well, next up, let's have a look at the mouse controls on the Nintendo Switch 2. So one of the boldest things about Dragon Drive isn't the art style, the lack of local multiplayer, it's the controls itself. Well, the game is one of the first to fully embrace the Switch 2's new Joy-Con technology, including the mouse controls. So thanks to the improved motion sensors and the gyroscopic accuracy, the Joy-Cons can behave like a wireless mouse. You can point, you can drag, you can swipe, and you can flick your way through a game, not just tilting like a Wii remote, but actually guiding a cursor across the screen in real time. So in Dragon Drive, this translates to players literally dragging their vehicles across the lanes, using a mix of pointer precision and also gesture input. So Polygon described it as surprisingly intuitive, but also warned that it might be a little bit too clever for its own good. It's not the kind of control scheme you can master in a minute. This isn't really a pick up and play game. It does take some calibration, and that can be a risk, especially for a new IP. Nintendo has a history of using hardware as a canvas for new ideas, but when the barrier to entry is too high, even good ideas can feel quite alienating. Still, if Dragon Drive can pull it off, this could be one of the first real proof of concept for Nintendo's next wave of motion innovations. It's not about swinging swords or flinging the Wii remote anywhere, it's about precision, responsiveness and treating the Joy-Con like a digital brush. Although whether players are going to adapt to that remains to be seen. Well, next up, let's have a look at some of the Nintendo games with gimmicks of the past. So if there's one thing that defines Nintendo beyond its characters, it's this: they love a gimmick. From the moment the DS launched with a second screen, a stylus, to the motion controls of the Wii, to the cardboard crafting with Nintendo Labo, Nintendo has built a legacy around hardware innovation and the strange, wonderful games that follow it. So some of the gimmicks have become legendary. Wii Sports turned motion controls into a cultural phenomenon. Nintendogs used the DS microphone and touchscreen in a way that felt fresh and emotional. Ring Fit Adventure proved that even fitness could be gamified with a plastic ring and an elastic band. These ideas didn't just add flavour, they defined the experience. But for every hit, there is also a misfire too. So Star Fox Zero on the Wii U tried to blend cockpit and third-person views using dual screens, ended up frustrating players more than thrilling them. 1-2 Switch was built entirely around Joy-Con gimmicks like HD rumble and infrared sensors, and many found it shallow and overpriced. Even beloved franchises like Yoshi and Kirby have occasionally stumbled when it's saddled with awkward motion or touch-based mechanics. There's a recent Reddit thread discussing the best and worst Nintendo gimmicks, and it paints a clear picture that fans love innovation, but only when it serves the gameplay. Gimmicks need to feel like a tool and not like a novelty. When the ideas get in the way of fun, players just definitely check out. And this is where Drag and Drive enters risky territory. Its reliance on the mouse-style controls might be Nintendo's big next breakthrough, or it might be remembered as another cool tech demo wrapped in a pricey game. History shows us that Nintendo walks this line very often, and not always successfully. Well, next up, let's have a look at some of the reviews and the reactions. So, Drag and Drive landed with a wave of curiosity thanks to its unusual premise: wheelchair basketball meets futuristic arenas, all controlled using the new Switch 2 Joy-Con mouse. And early previews from outlets like Nintendo Life praised the novelty, with Gavin Lane calling it fantastic for its representation of disability sports and for how surprisingly responsive the controls felt. The vibrant arcade-like presentation also drew comparisons to Rocket League with a Wii Sports twist, fast, colourful and immediately accessible for casual play. However, the full reviews have been a bit more mixed, so on Metacritic the game settled to the low to mid 60s, signalling a split between admiration for the ambition and frustration with the execution. So Video Games Chronicle described it as a great multiplayer game let down by a lack of features, warning that the fun may run dry quite quickly without more modes or content. Well, The Verge was even harsher, pointing to uncomfortable controls, sluggish pacing, and repetitive matches, issues that turn the innovation control system from a selling point into a barrier for longer sessions. So even with these criticisms, there's a consensus that Drag and Drive shines in short bursts, and it is a decent party title. It's a rare example of Nintendo experimenting with inclusivity in a sports game, while also pushing hardware boundaries. The big question though is whether Nintendo is going to support it with updates to refine the comfort, add content and keep the community engaged. Without that, the risk is pretty clear: it may remain a fascinating novelty rather than a lasting competitive hit. So let's have a go at answering that question we posed at the beginning. So will Drag and Drive be a success? So whether this game is going to be a long-term success is still very much up in the air. On one hand, it has all the hallmarks of a Nintendo experiment that could carve out a loyal niche. A bold, never-before-seen control system, vibrant arcade presentation, and the rare spotlight on disability sports in a mainstream release. It's a conversation starter, a tech showcase for the Switch 2, and a kind of game that gets people curious just by hearing about the premise. But the biggest question mark really is staying power, as reviews have made clear the core gameplay, while fresh and fun at first, can quickly become repetitive. Without a robust set of modes, ranked play, or a steady stream of updates, the game risks fading from the spotlight once the initial novelty wears off. Nintendo's got a history of letting some of its more experimental multiplayer titles drift without much post-launch support, and Drag and Drive could be vulnerable to that same fate. Commercially, its success might come down to timing and positioning. As an early Switch 2 game near to launch, it benefits from a smaller pool of games competing for attention, meaning early adopters are more likely to give it a try. Strong word of mouth in those first few weeks could help it stick, but the opposite is also true. If players bounce off it quickly, it could struggle to maintain an active player base. In short, Drag and Drive is poised to be memorable, but whether it's remembered as a cult hit or a short-lived curiosity depends almost entirely on what Nintendo does next. With the right content update, refinements to comfort and controls, or perhaps even an esports style push, it could grow into something bigger. Without that, it just simply risks joining the ranks of Nintendo's fun but fleeting past experiments. Well, let me know in the comments what you think about Drag and Drive, and do you think it's going to be a success for Nintendo? But that is it for this video today, looking at drag and drive, and thank you so much for watching or for listening. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for even more Nintendo content here on Power Up Direct. Thanks again, and I'll see you real soon.